Awesome.
All right, we are live. It's gonna take a couple minutes. I think you have a live show, don't you? You're on live.
I
You have live.
I do I do go live every once in a while, and I just want to say that because it kind of looks like a cocktail. I swear I'm not drinking at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but if you do, I like by all means, you do you. It seems like the rules don't really apply right now, but it's actually I've been making my own home or cold brew for the first time because I'm like, why not try
Oh,
it? I don't want to go to Starbucks, right? So I've been
yeah.
making my own, and it's really good. Have you ever tried making cold brew?
I have not.
Are
I
you a
have.
coffee fan?
I do like coffee, but I'm a frou-frou girl. I'm a frou-frou, so I like going to Starbucks and getting like the mocha mint or
This is
type of thing with.
close, like a homemade cold brew. And then I put the cold setting on to whip like actual whipping cream and put it on top. I'm telling you, it feels luxurious. And that's why I put it in a crystal
It,
glass. And it's like, I'm
yes,
so fancy.
you're like this is frou-frou-y.
It is. It is.
So for those who are joining right now, I'm not sure who that is, but if those are joining right now, I'm on with Michaela Alexis, who, by the way, like we have never even met. We haven't even
Yeah.
spoken. It's just that we've both been on LinkedIn for a while in kind of two different spaces, but I've been watching her. I've been watching her, like I've been watching her from afar. I'm like, that sounds like really creepy. But I know I've had people say that to me too, like, oh my gosh, like, I just know you. And I'm like, okay. Thank goodness.
The LinkedIn world, right?
Well, I think the good thing about it is we can be ourselves. Like I can show up this way here, I can show up this way in person, and at least like there's alignment with and congruency with who that is. Because if I was not, I mean, and I know that happens, but at least we are who we are, and that's who we are. Now, I may look a little different first thing in the morning when I'm going downstairs to work out, but I am still Heather, and you're still Michaela. So that's the most important.
To me, it's way too much work to be anybody else. I don't understand the whole turning on, turning off thing. It just sounds exhausting to me. So this is kind of, I mean, my personal brand, part of it is just comes from laziness. I don't want to change. I don't want to have to go back and forth, right?
That's hilarious, actually. That you're like, yeah, I'm just lazy. I don't want to do anything. I'm trying to go in here. So the thing about, do you use StreamYard for your lives?
This is the first time I have ever used StreamYard.
Okay, so what do you normally use?
I'm Team Switcher all day long.
And can you see the comments inside of Switcher?
No, that's the only, but I mean, that's LinkedIn in general. They got to like play a little bit better with all the software and technology because that's like the best part of lives, right? Actually seeing people's comments.
And I'm like, I don't have like, I'm one of, it's Heather. So again, this is me. I don't have a moderator. I could get my kids down here, but they're doing schoolwork. So I'm not going to interrupt them from their schoolwork, which will just put them behind to say, can you please like look at this and moderate? So I'm just going to look. And if there's any comments here, we'll make sure to do that. Anybody who's out there, let us know you're out there because it is creepy.
You know what I really like hearing? I really like hearing where people are from. That's like my favorite thing because LinkedIn is such a global community that I love seeing people from Italy, people from Spain, people from all over the place. So I would love to hear where people are tuning in from today.
Yes, exactly.
I'm from Ottawa, by the way. I don't think most people know that I am Canadian. It doesn't come out until I start saying things like about. That's like a big one. Or I start talking about the temperature with the degrees Celsius.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Fahrenheit.
I knew you were from there. But it is funny because occasionally if I'm in your videos, I'd hear that. And I'm originally from Ohio, but I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, of all places, and I'm in Colorado now, and I moved here in 1993 to go to law school, and I never left. So yeah. I love it here. I mean, like it's a sunny day. I plan on getting out and doing my walk. I have to. I'll be in Canada. Well, if everything goes well for a speaking engagement in October in Manitoba. Wait.
Okay.
Yeah, Winnipeg. Yeah.
Winnipeg?
Yeah. Winnipeg. So I'm excited about that.
I don't know too much about Winnipeg. It's one of those places that I've actually like flown through to get other places. Like when I was spoken in Saskatoon. I do remember that there's a really good smoothie place, and like that's literally all I know about Winnipeg. I'm so sorry for anybody that's tuning in from Winnipeg. I only know airport food.
Oh, I like airport food. Let's see who's on here with us right now. Let's see, Darren. Oh, I wish I could say some of these names though, so I'm not gonna mess it up. Hello, Darren. David Pushkin, he's on there with us. He's morning. he says yesterday he said he loved both of us, so that's awesome. Bo Demeslu, I'm not gonna do that again. Sorry, South Africa. Darren is from England.
Ooh,
Joseph's
very
from
cool.
Tampa,
Awesome.
and then oh Laura, yay! Western Massachusetts. Nice to see you. And I absolutely adore Laura. And I can never say her last name. I'm gonna actually get on a call because I've been trying to get on a call with her. And it's like, this is so not right. Michaelatis, but I know that's not right. So I'm sorry if I offended you, but I absolutely adore you. I think you know that.
It's
And
the effort that counts.
yeah, exactly. It's the effort. I try hard. So I'm so excited to like finally. So I'm literally meeting Michaela for the first time, being able to see her seeing me, and I wanted to get her on here because some of the things that popped to her mind and my mind were talking about productivity and how this whole social distancing or working remotely or all of those things, the distractions at work, how it actually is affecting productivity of the employees that are working at home right now. That's one of the things we want to talk about. And then we also want to talk about kind of the mental state of most of us and how that's impacting some of our work, and also what we can do to support. I think it's not just, I think generations, but I think many of us need a lot of the same things. It might be, how do we support introverts versus extroverts? That might be more of the more important topic. But what are some of the things you either heard or you're thinking about in the productivity space now with people working
Yeah.
remotely?
That's a great question. So I've done both. Like I've been, because I really do sympathize with people that are going from the corporate world. They had their cubicle, they had their space, they had their office, to all of a sudden being thrust into this like work from home mode. It's not seamless. And so if you are listening and you're like, yeah, it hasn't been seamless at all, just know that that is 100% normal. It is a huge transition. I actually remember when I went from the corporate world, the day after, I'm like, I don't even know how to, like, it feels so bizarre to like be at home, but you're working, but that's usually where you spend your free time. It's a whole mindset shift. So there were a few things that I learned pretty early on when I started working from home. Number one is that I really needed to have a space that meant working. So just like you have your bed, and your bed should be used for sleeping and whatever else, you don't want to like spend time necessarily doing work in bed, eating in bed, because it signals to your brain. And that's why some people might be having issues with sleeping, that it's for all of these things, all of these activities, right? And so when it comes to working, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. I'm very lucky in that, we have a townhouse. And so there was a room available that I could turn into an office. Some people might not have that. I mean, you just said that you're in your basement, right?
Right now.
So it could be as simple as a space on the couch, right? A desk that you put into a room that people don't use as much. As long as you just have a little bit of space, and as soon as you go into that space, that's your workspace, and you don't do anything else there. The other thing that I realize is that your brain needs different spaces depending on what the work is. This one like really tripped me up, right? So just like when you're at the office, have you ever noticed that when you're doing certain types of work, you want to like shut the door, you got to like be in full focus mode, but then other activities, you could be like lounging on like a beanbag chair, you could be in like, around people, you could maybe go to a cafe and get that work done. It's because it's the difference between focused work and light work. So light work is like answering emails, it could be designing things. It's really up to the person, but I know what those activities are, right? And so with those activities, I might do it on the couch downstairs. I might sit in my backyard and like soak up some rays. But when it comes to like, I need to sit down for hours and focus on something, that's when I go to my office, I shut the door, and that means like full silence. And so knowing what your brain needs, because sometimes we try to like just kind of put ourselves into a box, and that might not be the case, right? And so finding what works for you in your house and what space feels good is super, super important. And you're going to have to coach people. I mean, we were just talking about before this. I mean, my husband is at home more than he is usually. He has never worked from home, so he does not understand that he can't open the door every 5 minutes. If anybody else is like, heck yeah, I understand what you're saying. Just know that there's going to be some training involved, whether it's putting a note on the door, having a heart-to-heart conversation saying, this is what I need to succeed in my role right now. This is what I need from you. And just having those really honest conversations is helpful. But know that there's a learning curve. Also know that people understand. right? You know, if you get on a call, I've got my dog. She's laying on the couch right across from me right now. She might see a squirrel in 2 seconds and go crazy. That's just work from home life.
I
Right.
heard
And
that
I
couch.
love that.
I heard the couch. I can't do it, but the Canadian couch. How'd you say it again?
Couch. Did I say it Canadian? Oh,
You
God.
did.
Coach.
Yes.
Chesterfield. You guys don't say Chesterfield, do you? I think Chesterfield is a Canadian word.
I love that word, though. I think I've said it before and I love it.
But just know, like, use this time to be able to, like, relax into your work too. Like, we're so used to having things structured a certain way. Actually, like, embrace this new time. And what's great about this is that hopefully for some people, if they do work well from home, not everybody does work well from home. That's just the truth. But if you do, and you find that you're actually being very productive and maybe more productive than you are in an office, that might be a great conversation to have once things kind of settle down and go back to normal. Approaching that conversation with your boss or your supervisor saying, hey, look at all the stuff that I actually did when I was in this space. Let's talk about maybe a little bit more flexibility in terms of where I work.
It's interesting because the other thing that comes to mind are two things. One, so I have the 4 kids at home, and one of my kids, he's in his room because and it's at his desk. He has a desk, and he's sitting at his desk, and he's there, you know, and his is mostly all online, and so he's online all day. And he comes down and he's taking his glass off, and he's just like, and he's like, I just feel like there's just no end, there's no beginning, and there's no end. Which obviously most of us feel like that, right? But here's what it's interesting because, you know, you and I have already worked from home. That it's a balance, and it's a struggle for me. I want to be honest. Right. Of when do I stop and start? Because my office is right here.
Yeah.
So then I'm just like, well, now I can go answer that other email. Oh, I forgot I need to email the type, whatever. I needed to do this one more thing. And now it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. My kids are like, are you done yet? And so I always had struggle with that, whether it's this time or before. So I don't know. What do you recommend? Is there something that you do? Because I keep seeing you around the sofa with your coffee.
Oh my gosh. That was probably my biggest issue is like 5 o'clock, like nobody tells you to go home and you're already home. And then your brain starts doing these things too, where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a commute in the morning. I don't have a commute at night. So maybe I should use that hour to do more work. And that's a really great way to start burning out, right? To like start just adding on all these things that you could be doing the next day. So it's really embracing self-discipline and also finding that balance. It's different for everybody. I used to try to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And I've realized that's just never going to be my thing. Like I do like the days where I can wake up a little bit earlier, but for the most part, I am like a night owl through and through. And so I have started to take off Mondays, and I really love that because it gives me a day between Sunday and Tuesday where instead of just going into work mode, I can actually sit down and think about what I want to achieve that week. So that's a really great space that I've set aside for myself. I also don't start working usually until about 11 or 12 o'clock. Right. Because so my husband, I've noticed, and I have very different working styles. My husband, and I've only noticed this because of housework. So he's that person that will like go and he'll vacuum, then take a break. He'll maybe read some of his book, and then he goes and he does another thing. So he's very good at taking breaks. Now my style is I'm a marathoner. If I'm working, I'm like sitting down and I'm going to get things done. Yeah. And if I stop, I'm out. Right. And so knowing what type of worker you are, and this is actually a good time to figure that out because most of the time we're just told what to do. And now that you're in a position where it's like, here's your work, you figure out how to get it done. You're going to learn really quickly which kind of camp you fall into. But I really think it's just, you know, having the balance, setting a timer. I actually had to set a timer at 5 p.m. for a long time, where it was like time to walk the dogs. And my dogs have trained me actually at this point because 4:50, they're both staring at me like this. Right? And they're just waiting for me to like go for the walk because it's important to get outside too right now. Like you need that mental break. You need time to digest the day. And just like you mentioned, it's so tempting to get into like 8, 9 o'clock. And it's like, oh crap, I got to have dinner. And then I just go to bed and I start all over again. That's not really a great way to be productive.
It's not. And Bo was asking too. So he said he's concerned about basically new employees. How can we onboard new staff during this time. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. And so I have some feedback on it, and then I'll pass it over to you too. So it's basically onboarding new people remotely. Here's the thing. I think that we create our own barriers in our mind. And so why can't we extend the experience we normally did while they're at work to home? So here's an example. If you already were doing, let's say the manager was having lunch with their new team member before, like on their first day of work, why can't you, if it's in your budget, send some Subway through one of those, right? Or send something like that where you can enjoy the same lunch, and you could be on video just enjoying the same lunch together. The other thing is employees are thriving. They want to have connection. They want to have connection with their coworkers. And if you can do that quickly, it helps with the onboarding process as far as connecting their heart to the work that they do. And so why can't you then, the same thing you normally do, where all these people that are new are like sitting in one room and they're like, we have no clue what we're doing. We were so like out of our element. You can still have a kind of a joint Zoom or whatever meetings, Teams call with them, and do some kind of team building or something that says like, what, where are you coming? Where did you come from before this? But then like, what's your favorite so-and-so? Dessert, candy, whatever it is, right? That makes them start to know their coworkers a little better and have some kind of connection. Because right now they're going to feel even more disconnected than they normally would. So those might be a couple tips. I have others, but those would be a couple. What about you, Michaela? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've seen friends doing all sorts of things remotely that I think is really cool. We have so much technology that we can use right now, which is what's so great, right? There's things like, maybe on Fridays, rather than, the workplace that I was always working in, we would have beer, we would have pizza, it would kind of be like a wind down moment. And that would be a great space for you to have this like casual get together. Maybe you play games, just like you mentioned, where you're just kind of mingling and socializing. You could also do things like, I'm a big believer in accountability. And I feel like it's really helpful if you have like, maybe like, on Wednesdays or on Mondays, either you have a morning call where everybody just kind of talks about what they're excited about conquering that day or that week, what projects are on their plate, what they're struggling with, where their challenges lie. I think that could be really helpful. Or having a call at the end of the day where you talk about things that you're proud of that you did that day. And it could be work related, it could be non-work related, it could be all the things. And I think just having that regular communication as much as you can. Zoom is amazing. Zoom is like a miracle in this time. There's so many things that you can do with it. I know with friends and family, I've also been looking at things like House Party. That's super fun to play games with other people. Slack is another option to just make sure that you're having that regular communication. But there are so many tools available that there's no reason that you can't still have some sort of connection. One of the biggest things that like I was missing when I first started working solo was having coworkers. And well, you end up doing naturally, Heather, I don't know if you're the same, but you start to find your like unofficial coworkers. So it's people that are like kind of in the same space as you, that you maybe are connected to on LinkedIn, and you just have regular calls with them. I've got girlfriends all throughout LinkedIn that I know when something goes wrong or I'm having a challenge with a client, I can pick up the phone and call them or Zoom with them and have those conversations. So I think regardless of whether you work solo, you have a team, we all need those like regular human touches.
And actually, Darren brings up a good point too. This is kind of going back to our first discussion, but it was a good point. Is to make sure you're getting up and you get dressed like for business or work. Don't really roll around the house in pajamas all day, because it's the wrong mindset.
It is the wrong mindset.
Right? And it's so interesting because I have one kid who weirdly he'll get up and shower every morning, but then he wants to put on his pajama pants. He's like, I don't know what it is, but it's like there's a level. I don't know. I'm like, why don't you get fully dressed, babe? And he's like, I shower. I'm showering. That's what helps me. I'm like, okay, whatever helps you, babe. But I want him to get up and get dressed.
You're washing off the kind of residue from the day prior. One thing that like has been really helpful to me, even when I was at the office, but especially now, is actually visualizing my goals and my beliefs everywhere. Like I'm obnoxious about it, but like right now I'm staring at my dream board. I do it every single year. It's my dream for 2020. I've got work, play, health, and family. And so beyond just like having a to-do list every day, I actually have my goals for the year for each one of those categories. And every time I'm starting a new project or I'm doing something, I look at it and I'm like, is that in line with what I'm trying to achieve this year? I see it all the time. I even have a whiteboard that's in my closet. and I put a quote on it every single day based on what I'm trying to achieve. And I think actually visualizing all of those things is really, really helpful, especially if you're moving from a space where maybe you had people telling you those things to you trying to kind of reinforce it for yourself.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to come back to that too. I see. Okay, so let's see. Because there's like there are people all over the place, and we are too, and that's all right. So I'm coming back to that. Okay, so Bo says thanks for the great suggestions and good point on communication, maybe over communication. That's absolutely. And then someone asked, has any of us ever used Netflix Party? I don't even think I know that existed, and that is so cool. Do you know anything about that?
There's one that's called AirPlay that I just downloaded, and I think it's the same idea. Like it can connect to Netflix. I don't know, but I love that idea of kind of getting together in that way. I think,
and that would probably speak to, I bet you, millennial. I probably speak to everybody because I mean, it depends. I think I say millennials. I kind of believe in some. I'm kind of a drinker of the generation juice, but then again, I'm kind of not because I am going to be 49 this year, and there's so many things like this Netflix Party sounds like some serious fun to me. So I don't think I have to be in my early 30s or late 20s or whatever it was to actually be in that boat. So I just think I don't know what it is. We just need to be inclusive overarchingly and be thinking about what people need individually and maybe not putting us so much in a box, right?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to generations, the biggest difference that I see are just the values that we kind of were entrenched in us growing up. So what I've noticed, I work with students and I work with people close to retirement. The biggest difference that I see is that people that are closer to retirement have this idea of the personal professional self. So that you can see them constantly trying to like separate the two, where I see that the younger generations, people that are younger than me, they're together. Like they like this whole work from home thing is no big deal because they're like, yeah, work is part of my life. Like they want everything all together. And so I think that's kind of one like mindset thing that older folks tend to have an issue with, trying to break down I can't say that on LinkedIn. I can't do that. I can't show too much of my personality. And so that's a little bit more, I have to do a little bit more mindset work with them.
Oh, I love that. Well, I think that's a good point to bring up as we're thinking about who's sitting at home right now, because even though there are lots of similarities, I keep trying to look down at this look at this at the same time, so I'm not missing people. But when we think about who is sitting at their chairs, on their beds, on the floor, on the big bag, right? Like wherever they're sitting, on their roof, on their wherever they're at. Figure out what their needs are. And so here's how I look at it too: is it's incumbent upon the person who's like managing them or leading them to also find that out, to get into their head, like to have one-on-one conversations, even just this way, and see what it is they individually need instead of making assumptions about what they need, because they could be like you just described and they could be somewhere in between. And so it's asking the questions and saying, like, what do you need? What do you need to feel like you are being productive at home right now? What do you need to feel like you're still connected to everybody in the bigger mission of our organization? And asking those questions and trying to just have an open discussion, right? Just ask, for goodness sakes, and don't make assumptions. Because I think that's going to really tee them off even more if we do that, right?
Yeah, I think that, as this is a horrible situation, I'm not going to try and wrap a bow around it because it's an awful situation. It's very tragic for many people. My heart absolutely breaks for anybody that is either dealing with sickness, is dealing with a sick loved one, is dealing with loss. I've been through loss. My dad passed away last year, and grief is just such a complicated emotion. And then adding on, this social isolation on top of all that, so people can't even grieve properly, is absolutely horrendous. It really is. The silver lining in this is that this is a very human, universal trauma, in that nobody is really spared. All of us have kind of been yanked out of our normal life and thrust into something different, right? And so what I've noticed is that people that maybe haven't in the past suffered with depression, anxiety, grief, all of those things, are now trying to grapple with these new emotions. And I think that this is a really great time for leaders to say, how am I feeling right now? And then be like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine how my employees must be feeling, and understand grief is one of the most complex emotions that there is. It can manifest in so many different ways. It could be anxiety, it could be anger. So if you have an employee that maybe is more short, is being more passive aggressive, that could actually be a manifestation of grief, because all of us are going through this process of, oh, I miss my old life, and life will probably never be the same for any, if not most of us, right? And so there is that element of trying to kind of grapple with that in this new reality. And so at least having that understanding, doing some research, right? Looking at what is grief, how does it manifest, having very human conversations with your coworkers. I don't know about you, but when I'm talking to clients, I'm not just jumping into content. That's terrible to me. So I get on a phone call and I ask, where are you located? How are you doing? Truly, how are you doing? Not just like, how's it going? How are you holding up? Is everybody in your family okay? Are you struggling with anything? Because until we kind of get past that and people feel like they're heard and understood and seen, we're not going to be able to have a relationship. And the same thing goes with it's even more important actually with your employees, for you to just take some time and say, how are you feeling today? Just check in with them every single day and ask how they're doing, truly. And I think it's a really great opportunity to bridge the gap, because what I noticed before all of this, I've been on both sides. I've been the boss, and I've also been the employee. When I was in the employee, I was like team employee, right? I thought all bosses were terrible. And then I became the terrible boss. And then I started thinking the same thing about employees. And I feel like there's this disconnect, right? And this is this moment where we can understand where each other are coming from, and understand that we're all human, right? And so there is that similarity. So hopefully this will kind of open the communication channels between different departments and different levels of seniority, because I think it is a great opportunity to kind of build more collaboration between the two.
One of the things that comes to mind for me, so I've had bouts with anxiety probably over the last 15 years, here and there and here and there, not like formal diagnosis or like formal, right? But I have had it. I know I have had it. Yeah. And actually, no, I've had one time formal diagnosis. One time when all of a sudden my face and my arms, everything became completely numb, my eyeballs, and I thought I was having a stroke. I was at work. And I had to have one of my employees take me to the ER. And then since then, just like every other year, boom, 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 it pops up and it comes up in a weird way. And so just the other day, I'm sitting at my desk and I've been like, why are my eyes so sensitive to this light? Like, I need to take my screen way down. I need to take my phone screen down. What is happening? I need to go to the ophthalmologist to check, and I start to think about it. And I go out, I work out in the morning, I go out and walks in the middle of the day, like I'm doing all the things we talk about too. And I start to think about it. I'm like, I think this is anxiety, not even knowing it. And I'm like an upbeat, kind of more forward-thinking person. But I think it's because I am a driver. I'm a person who like is moving, has to succeed. That's just how I am. And so all of a sudden I'm feeling myself continuing to drive and not relax. And I could feel it in my eyes. And I'm like, what is that? So I woke up this morning, because this is a mindset thing. I talk about this in my TED Talk. I talk about this all the time. It's mindset. And we all have to go in and out and up and down these hills and valleys. And so I woke up and I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that today. I am not doing that today. And so I just started to give myself a little bit more breaks. Like I took a little more time to have my smoothie. I had my water, and I was just like calming myself down from this Heather thing I do, which is just move, just constantly looking forward. And sometimes that's hard. And I had a friend of mine who wrote this amazing article. I need to forward it out there again. She's a comedian speaker person, so she's normally super funny, but this piece of work she did it was probably a couple weeks ago, about the coronavirus and how we can start to look at this instead of like, let's drive, let's still produce, let's do this now. Like maybe this is not that time. Like maybe she's like, I'm happy to do nothing. And it was but it was an amazing, she had like hundreds of thousands of people sharing. It was crazy because it was so real. It kind of gave ourselves grace. It let us off the hook a little bit. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting because we as humans, just so that everybody knows, like exactly what you're saying, most people are like that. We love control. Humans don't do well when we lose control. And so anxiety should manifest from that. So if you're feeling that, that's totally normal. I think that a lot of people don't necessarily know all the signs of anxiety. Anxiety doesn't mean like panic attack, shaking in a corner necessarily. It can manifest as like, I have had skin problems. I'm getting like eczema every once in a while, like spots on my chest. I've gotten them on my face. My husband is having the same thing. That's actually been happening to a lot of people. They're going to the hospital like with weird rashes and stuff, and people are saying it's just stress.
Oh my
Right?
gosh.
There's other things. I know that before I have a panic attack, I get really cold. I get like chills. So that could be another thing if you're constantly having chills. Headaches are a big thing. One thing that I've seen a ton of articles about are people reporting strange dreams. Hello, I am one of those people. So what ends up happening is that we don't necessarily always give ourselves permission to feel the feels, right? And so during the day, we might be feeling anxious, stressed, all of these things. So our brain is like, nope, got to do the work, got to get this done. This has to happen. I got to survive. And then once we shut down, our brain says, okay, I'm free to like let it all go, right? So then we end up with these very vivid, strange dreams that are basically our manifestation of our anxiety. So I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's great. I see so many messages of people saying, this is what you need to do. That message that's like, you know, if you aren't a better person out of this, if you aren't a more productive person, if you're not chasing your dreams right now, then you didn't have a time issue. You had a discipline issue. Heck no. There's a difference between time and capacity. And not everybody has the capacity, including myself. I have days where I feel like I am on fire. Like I can do all the courses, I can like get everything done. And then the next day I am just a lump. Like, and that's okay, right? Because sometimes you read a story in the news about, you know, a wife or a husband or a mother or a father or a grandfather that passes away. And it's like, it touches your heart so much that you're like, I need to just absorb this really historic trauma, right? And so giving yourself, that's been my motto through the whole thing, is like, I will give myself as much grace as I need through this entire time. So it's really about being tuned into your body. For anybody that hasn't suffered from anxiety, I mean, I had agoraphobia for a year and a half. I have a general anxiety disorder. Some of the things that I use to be able to thrive as like a international speaker are, I use the Calm app, CALM. They have really great meditations that are on there. One of my favorites are the emergency meditations. So if you are having that moment of panic or you're having a headache or whatever, you know that you're feeling anxious, lay back, 5 minutes. You can do a 3-minute one, a 5-minute one, or a 10-minute one. And it literally just guides you through. And I promise you that it's going to make you feel better. They also have sleep stories. Have you ever used their sleep stories? They're so good.
No, is it from Calm?
It's from the Calm app. So it's there's a lot of like actors and celebrities that had stories on there, but they're gorgeous stories, fairy tales, stories about waterfalls and all of these things. That is the one thing that I use when I travel, because I will go through time zones and then my mind is all messed up and I need to sleep to perform. And so I'll put on a sleep story, and I'm telling you, it is absolutely amazing. I love it. There's also the Peloton app, which isn't just for cycling, which I just found out. They have a free 90-day trial right now, but they have a whole section that's just meditation. You can do one on gratitude, stress, anxiety.
Oh, wow.
And you can even join live meditation sessions. So there are so many options available if you are struggling with your mental health. But I think the biggest issue for most people is recognizing that they have anxiety, because I think that we are getting better when it comes to mental health conversations. But there are some people that I know that come up to me and they're like, Michaela, I think I have anxiety. And they're like whispering it like this dark secret. And I'm like, I think most people have anxiety or some sort of
something.
Yeah. And so it's really just recognizing that we aren't perfect robots and we need what we need and getting the help that you deserve. I know here in Canada, we're very, very lucky. We have telemedicine options where you can actually connect to a doctor that can prescribe medication. And can also give you a referral for psychologists that you can take to talk about your anxiety. And a lot of people have coverage through their private, and some of it is also covered through OHIP. So we're very, very lucky in that sense that there are so many resources available.
That is great. And yeah, I think I started off because I've already had the, been in and out of anxiety for the last 15 years. It's something I think it's important to talk about, particularly I think even more important for you and I, since we are out there in the world and speaking and writing and all those other things, right? That people know that this is not about perfection. I mean, in everything I do, it is about it being intentional, but sometimes being intentional isn't about moving forward to go do something. It's about sitting down and taking care of you. So that self-care element of this time for us, and then making sure if you're a manager of teams, as Laura was talking about, that you help them also take the time to care for themselves, because sometimes they need to know that it's okay. It sounds weird that they need our approval, but they feel like, many of them feel like they need our approval to do that. And so, making sure, because here's the thing right now, how you show up right now as a leader of teams, if you are someone who does that, or leader of a project or whatever, this makes all the difference for what it's going to look like for you and your team and your business a year from now. Because those people will choose to stay or not, depending on how you acted and responded right now. So those are the critical elements of what we're talking about. And so me as a leader in my home, for example, right? Don't have people I'm leading. I have contractors that work with me. And then I have my peeps that are here in the house are my 4 kids. And I have to lead them in a certain way. And sometimes they see mom kind of, energyless. And most of the time they don't. But I think for me, I choose to show strength and compassion. I choose to show up in some way every day, even if it's like, I'm going to not do work. I'm going to be with you today. I'm going to go out for a walk today, whatever that is. And they see me making those intentional choices. And I think that's all that I think both you and I are talking about, is be intentional, whatever that might be. Right.
Yeah, I think that it's even more important for leaders, absolutely, to really be like prioritizing self-care in whatever shape and fashion you can, even if it's as simple as like a 5-minute meditation, going for a walk, getting some air, all of those things. Baths. Some people love taking baths, or like taking a shower and screaming in the shower. Whatever you guys do it, because you need to show up as your best self. I know right now that if I wasn't taking care of my health, my sleep, I wouldn't be able to be on camera with you, because normally, given the circumstances, I might be just a mess if I wasn't taking the time to go for a walk with my dogs, I do my yoga classes at night. I know everybody doesn't have the ability to do all these things, but whatever it is, whether it's reading a book, doing a gratitude list, there are just so many ways that you can nurture your mind, but you got to get your mind right before you start pouring into other people, because you want to make sure that you're pouring good stuff and not, the toxic energy.
Oh, so true. Yes. Getting the mind right is so critical. And I think about what I've talked about before, which is this idea of reframing our circumstances. And here's the thing, reframing happens. It's a lot easier to do when we're not in the circumstance. So even like the talk that I gave, I talked about reframing my childhood, and then like all of the words I told myself as a person, as a human on this earth. And it was easier to do that after I passed it, or like when I was laid off from a job. It was easy to reframe 6 weeks after it had happened. And so just know that this is happening. You should be feeling emotions that you may not either be familiar with or love, but you should be having those, and we're human and we should be. And so take that in and sit in that and rest in that. Don't just like run past it, because I think that's totally unhealthy. And I think that's going to produce more anxiety and more of these negative things anyway. So, sit in it and then say to yourself, okay, I gave myself the time I needed, and now I'm going to do something different, whatever that might be. Like you said, I'm going to take a bath more frequently. I'm going to go for walks, whatever that might be for you. So one last thing I wanted to talk about just really quickly, because I don't know anybody else who has who was on an Amazon Prime series. And so you were on one, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. And I'm sure people who are joining in would love to hear more about that too.
Yeah. And you know what? It was almost around this time. So last spring, maybe it was summer, I went to Montreal to film. It's called The Social Movement. So it's a reality TV show. It's basically a competition show. It was a whole bunch of entrepreneurs that kind of got together from around the world. We were put into different teams, and then we had to compete against each other with a seemingly impossible task. Ours was to stop a hurricane from reaching landfall. And we had a few days to actually have some sort of solution to the problem and then present it to judges. So I mean, my experience was amazing. I went to Montreal. We actually stayed on a boat So no, there's a Canadian accent again. So it was amazing because there were, you know, dozens of entrepreneurs from around the world, from people, you know, that were in their 20s, just graduated, up to past retirement. And they had totally different knowledge. We had one guy that worked at NASA. We had another guy that was a military photographer. So I've never been put in a position, on a boat, where you can literally wash your hands from your bed in your sink, but also just being around so many incredible people. And that's probably one of the best experiences of my life, was especially at the very end, where we got to kind of talk about what the experience meant to us, kind of being all together for that week, and just hearing different people's stories and where they come from and all those things. So that happened last summer. I'm still hoping that it comes out in 2020. Now it's been a little bit delayed because of everything that's happening. But super excited for people to see what we came up with, because I think it's a pretty incredible solution. And it was really neat to be able to leverage the LinkedIn platform to come up with the solution as well. The one thing that I've learned is that people that truly love what they do are very generous with their genius, like surprisingly so. And some of the people that I reached out to that didn't expect any sort of response did respond. And, you know, this is like at 10 o'clock at night with a stranger, but they're talking about what they love. And I think that's such a gift, isn't it? To be able to love what you do so much that, you know, you just kind of always willing to share it with other people. So really, really excited to see what people think, and also for people's opinions on my outfits.
Ooh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. That was so exciting when I saw it. I'm like, where is it? Where is it? I haven't been seeing anything posted. And so I told you that LinkedIn and the algorithm don't stop me from seeing Michaela now. I don't know. I don't know if you're seeing me at all, but I'm not seeing you. So we need to make sure that we see each other.
That was a long time ago. That was actually something that was on my bucket list, is that I wanted to appear on a reality TV show. And then kind of like threw it off there because I'm like, that's never going to happen. But LinkedIn is just, I mean, you know this. It's incredible. Like, I can't even talk about how amazing it's been for me. I'm a marketer from Ottawa. I am nobody special. I'm not a celebrity, was not born rich, didn't have any crazy connections, but being able to go on a platform as a broke job seeker. And now I have my own shoe with K-Swiss. Like, the amount of opportunities that are available when you open up your heart and you embrace this new global digital community are just incredible. But I could go on about my love.
Oh, I know. And I want to talk about some stuff with you offline on that, because I think it's so critical. I think it's awesome. And same thing. Why fix what's not broken? Why stop what you're doing when it get to the place you wanted to go? And so I'm with you. I'm all with this platform. And I'm glad for whoever joined today. Thank you so much for doing that. And it was amazing to have you on, and I cannot wait to actually meet in person. We'll have to find a way to get that done. I don't know how, but we'll get a big hug when that happens. And it's been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited we made this happen.
I am too. Thanks everybody too for joining. And for those who are commenting, Laura and Alexis and Bo and Joseph and everybody who was on there, I appreciate you joining. And then remember, this will be then available on my profile, so we could share this about, you can, and everybody who else who's joining can share it about and get even more people to see some of the messages, particularly around the mental health stuff. I mean, that was really critical. So thanks again.
All right. Bye guys. Love and coffee.
See you, everybody.